you don't touch the bottom. You need to be perfect.
I agree with you, but it is quite difficult for someone who's brand new and never done this before.
With no gear on, he would take your twin set and climb up the ladder. But I'm watching this guy, and Glenn says, how many dives do you reckon he's done? He was perfect. Horizontal trim, could move around, I don't know, maybe 50 dives, he says. He just qualified last week.
That's crazy.
It was like his 20th dive.
Hello everyone and welcome to Scuba with Sara G. Today we have an amazing guest with us. You might know him by his bright, iconic green sunglasses, or otherwise you might know him because of his photography skills and also because he's been diving in the UAE for over 27 years now. Let's welcome Gordon.
Hi Sarah, how are you?
How are you doing today, Gordon?
I'm doing really good. I've
Kudos
been wet
to you.
Already.
You went to a pub quiz yesterday and you still managed to make it to a morning dive today.
Of course.
Wouldn't expect less from you.
Up early.
Tell us a little about your background. How did you come here? You've been diving here for nearly 3 decades now.
Yeah, well, I came here through a tunnel from Saudi when I was trying to escape, Well, not quite.
I can make one phone call.
Yeah, I've been in UAE since 1997, diving before that. Started almost in a professional way to some degree back in the 80s. I used to work for the National Health Service in the UK and decided that I needed to do something different. And through connections, etc., I ended up in the commercial diving field for a couple of years, which was in the mid-80s. But unfortunately, the price of oil dropped down to less than $10 a barrel back then. Can you imagine it?
That's crazy.
Really crazy. But I ended up having to go back to my old job, and I couldn't work in the UK. So I moved to Saudi. And of course, Saudi has this nice piece of water called the Red Sea. And that's just started my, can you call it a career? Not really. My interest in recreational.
Were you doing commercial diving back in Saudi as well, or no?
No, I was just diving for the hell of it, It was fun. It was raw. I mean, there were very few dive centres. In Jeddah, you could dive anywhere. We used to drive up and down the coast, park the car, get the tanks out and go for a dive anywhere you wanted. There was nothing much outside of Jeddah itself. But it got built up, obviously, in the years I was there. Spent 11 years in Saudi.
Wow. And what brought you to Dubai from there?
A job offer I couldn't refuse, and almost double my salary. So, it was that made a huge difference. And I changed roles then from sort of treating patients to selling stuff to treat patients, and working for a Japanese company.
And were you always into photography, or did that passion start later on?
Photography has been something I've been doing since I was 5. My father was a photographer as a hobby. And I just naturally sort of picked up a camera and took pictures with it. I always loved taking photographs. It was just one of these things that went wherever I went, I carried a camera.
And tell us about your first dive. Like, did you have a sense of wonder the first time you went diving?
My first dive was kind of bizarre because I was more in a commercial diving thing. So, no, there was no buoyancy control. There was nothing. It was in a big pool in Fort William. It was very odd because I only learned to swim maybe a couple of months before I started.
Wow.
Doing this. But not that I was swimming. I was walking across the floor and breathing. It was all very, very strange.
And how did your daughter get into diving? Was she inspired by you?
Yeah, I used to take her in the pool in the Hyatt where we lived here at the time. and we'd just sit in the bottom of the pool playing games. I had a little pony bottle, a 30 cubic foot
I've seen that
tank,
pony bottle.
and she breathed off of that. I had obviously a spare regulator or 3, and she did her junior open water with Al Boom when she was 12, I think. But she'd already done. She knew what it was like to breathe underwater.
Of course she did.
It wasn't really
Sitting at the bottom of the
an
pool
issue.
with you.
Yeah.
How do you think diving has changed your life?
Oh, it's made me more aware of my limitations and what I can do, respect of nature. It made me a much happier person. There's nothing better than floating around weightless and looking at what's around you, even in the most mundane conditions like off Jumeirah Beach. There's always something that's going to surprise you during a dive that you may not have noticed before, although it didn't happen this morning, unfortunately. But yeah, it's made me a much more appreciative person of your own mortality as well. Nature rules.
I know you're someone who even goes diving on your own a lot.
Yes.
Under the bridge in your secret little spot. Shout out, go under the bridge, yeah. But I also know that you're someone who loves community and you have so many dive buddies and you do so many trips.
Yeah.
So tell us a little about that aspect, about the dive community in the UAE.
Dive community in UAE is massive, but maybe not as big as I mean, I don't know how many divers there are. We tried to figure that out once. There was a friend of mine who wanted to build an app and do something for the diving community. Difficult to get a number because it's like Dubai, isn't it? It's people come, people go, people start diving and then they stop for whatever reasons, family, lots of different things. I mean, fortunately, having a family never stopped me. I mean, it affects women obviously more than men. Obviously, Chloe, who's just had a baby, she's been out of diving for about since
now.
January.
Yeah.
That was the last time she dived. Okay, she's just given birth. I reckon within a month she'll be desperate to get back in the water.
Passion, that's about it, right?
Yeah. The whole dive community here, there are people who are obviously as crazy as I am and do it every week. I'm lucky that I'm retired now, so I can dive whenever I feel like it.
Tell us about your last trip. You just came back from a cool diving vacation.
A few months ago now. It seems to... When I was in Indonesia for about 3.5 weeks, so included Bali. I try and go there every year. It's one of my main dive destinations for nudibranchs, which, if nobody knows, nudibranchs, they're my passion, obsession.
Could you tell us a little about them so that everyone can know what you're talking about?
They're colourful sea slugs, sometimes not so colourful sea slugs. In fact, Chloe once expressed her lack of excitement with some slugs that I found at the bridge, and they were Gordon's ugly sea slugs, she called them.
Because they were not colourful?
They were not as colourful as some of the ones that I like to show off on Instagram.
What are some of the most popular ones that people go searching for?
Here in UAE.
Yes.
UAE sea slugs, there's Hypsilodorus dolfuzzi is one of the key ones because it's only found here in UAE. And there's another one called Goniobranchus kazi, which was discovered by a friend of mine, Carol Harris, back in the late 90s. Something that had never been described before. So she got to name it, which was really cool. I missed that opportunity because...
You just said you have Gordon sea slugs.
Well, they've all been named, but when I lived in Jeddah, there was a Goniobranchus slug which had never been described before, and it was all over the place where I used to dive. I took loads of photographs of it, not knowing it had never been described. There was no internet back then, you know, you couldn't share things like
No.
today, which is amazing. You can find things, and within a few months, if you find something new, it can be DNA analyzed and maybe
Shared with people all over the world.
Exactly.
Talking about colorful sea slugs, I have your calendar here
Yeah.
with me. So show us some of your favorite pictures from this one.
Right, these I don't know what's showing here. I can't see the screen.
Let me have a look.
But this is
So that's a nudibranch, yeah?
yeah.
What variety is this one?
That's the Hypsilodorus carni.
Is it very common?
Sorry, not carni. Inficata.
Is it very common in the UAE?
It is. You find them on both coasts, east and west coast. Now that is the Hypsilodorus dulfuzzy, and that is only found in UAE, nowhere else. Although it was initially described in the Red Sea back in, I can't remember, 1920s or 1930s.
This guy looks very cute.
That's Hypsilodorus carni. Find them on Inchcape too, a lot. Oh, that's Nigrostrata.
Because of the stripes?
Yeah. They're all, the Latin names describe the actual, generally the description, the colour.
That looks beautiful.
That is one of the top ones this year. We've been inundated with it. It's a Yanula species. We don't know, it hasn't been named exactly yet. I don't know if anybody has taken it to do some DNA on it. I've discussed this with Henrik Stahl, somebody maybe you should talk to, a marine biologist who's working out of Corsican University. He runs the marine biology section there. An amazing guy, great diver. We did a bit of a cleanup of crown of thorns.
I remember that.
At the beginning of the year. So Chloe had alerted us that there was a bit of a invasive scene there with the crown of thorns.
And why are they dangerous? Tell us about that as well.
Why are they dangerous? Well, they are dangerous. Yeah, they're poisonous. You get pricked by one, you can react quite badly to it. But their danger is that they eat coral.
Yeah.
And they can have devastating effects on.
So what did you do about that?
Well, we did some surveys, first of all. And of course, we had to get permission from the local environmental agencies, which Henrik took care of through the university. And once we got the permission and the survey results, we worked with a university also in Italy. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
Was it Milan? A university in Milan. I need to check with Henrik on that.
And how long did it take you to clear the sea?
Well, after we got the permission when the surveys were submitted, we went out. Now, in the surveys, we had found about 60 something in about 200 square meter area. We collected 130.
That's crazy.
When we did the collection.
Over one weekend?
On one day.
Wow.
We had a big team, helped through the EDA as well, Ali Landis, some other well-known divers around here. We put them in a big bucket, so to speak, and then we injected them with vinegar on the boat. Put them in the bucket again, took them out to where we knew the depth was about 60 meters and just dumped the carcasses there. We've been back and not seen more than a couple. So I think we did the reef a good turn there. It was.
I know that's just one example. Before this, I remember there was Angel Reef and there were some big blocks that were thrown down and destroyed some of the coral. And again, you were at the forefront, organizing a cleanup.
That was, I don't know why this was done.
But tell us a little more about marine conservation, why you think it's important right now.
Well, we protect the seas. They will protect us. I mean, we're talking about something that covers more than 70% of the Earth, and less than 90% has been looked at, or less than 10% has been really researched. I mean, there's been some interesting work done here recently. It was Ocean X, but that's just a spit in the ocean, really. But they found a rare shark off the east coast, which is nice.
Oh,
The goblin shark, was it? I can't remember offhand. There's loads of stuff to be discovered.
I know your journey is very deep and very long, but for people who've never tried scuba diving, what would you say? Why should people try this? Like, it looks a bit scary from the outside.
You're weightless. You can float around in 3 dimensions. Now, you can't do that unless you're flying. You can fly underwater.
So you're saying it's easier than being an astronaut, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
And tell us some of the cool things you can see in the UAE other than your favorite sea slugs.
Other than, stingrays. Come across them. Anything that's bigger than you has got to deserve some respect.
For sure.
Unfortunately, don't see many sharks here. But you do see whale sharks.
Amazing. Where can we see whale sharks in the UAE?
Off the east coast. In the Gulf as well here. Although I've not seen them in the Gulf, but I do know there is a big congregation every year of whale sharks near Qatar. And
in Oman as well.
Oman's the other side.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you really want to see, your chances are very high if you go to places like Damani Islands.
I just came back from there last month.
And you saw whale
Yes,
sharks?
of course.
Yeah, good.
3 spottings in 3 weeks.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What about turtles? Do you know a lot about turtle season? When can people go check out?
Turtles you'll find all year.
What about the laying season and when the little turtles come out of their eggs?
Right. Now, my daughter worked down at the reserve near Gantoot several years ago when she finished university. It was about 2014. And there were turtles coming up to lay eggs around there. And that was something special because they were gathering the eggs, putting a cage around them to protect them because desert foxes were coming around and digging them up and obviously eating the eggs, so reducing the populations. And it's amazing, when they hatch.
Hundreds of them, thousands of them actually.
Just brilliant to watch, and they would try and keep them and then make them get in the water safely to avoid predators because we'd observed this before. Many years ago, I went down to Oman to Ras Al Had and we were watching the turtles laying eggs there. Unfortunately, there was a lot of predators around and you can't defy nature,
No.
It happens. And there's a reason that turtles lay hundreds of eggs, just to give a couple the opportunity to survive. So it's a bit disturbing when you go to other countries and you go to a fish market or something, or turtle eggs
That's
for
very
sale,
sad.
for eating. They're already, they're not viable to be hatched at that stage, but it's sad that people dig these things up and then sell them to make an omelette. It's
I know you and I both love to dive because we like to see the marine life.
Yeah.
But there are some people who are a bit scared and a bit they have their hesitation and doubts about going into the sea because of the marine life. So have you been diving a deep dive Dubai? Is it a nice place to try out diving for the first time?
in deep dive Dubai. Well, let's say there's no marine life there to sting you or eat you.
Just for those people who think exactly that a shark is going to eat them up.
To experience it, it might be a bit scary because it's deep. I mean, not that you're going to go right down to the bottom at 68 meters, or 60 meters, I should say. It's actually 59.8 meters.
0.99.
But Yeah, it's shallow enough. Even in places like Dive Campus or in
For sure.
their pool or Dive Garage, I've got a good pool there as well. But it's fresh water, so you don't need to worry about salt water stinging your eyes or anything like that. Mostly everybody's first experience diving will be in a swimming pool or something of that nature. It can be a bit strange breathing through your mouth all the time instead of your nose. And then getting your buoyancy and not touching the bottom, but you're just floating around. As I say before, you're in 3 dimensions, and you can't do that. We are, as bipeds, firmly rooted to the ground when we move around here. We can't fly naturally.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So being in the water takes that away, and it's something I love.
I love it too. That's why I dive
It's
pretty much every day.
just to float around and do nothing but look and feel, the difference. You're in water.
What are some of your favorite dive spots? I know your secret is under the bridge, but for new divers, what are places you'd recommend to go check out in the UAE?
In the UAE, the wrecks. I think wrecks are great places to have a look at stuff because things grow on wrecks.
Yes.
When they go down initially, there's nothing on them, and within weeks, there's marine life starting to grow. The best example I've seen of that, and it's an area that is sort of disintegrating now, is when Barracuda Dive Centre made an artificial reef from a bunch of old cars that we call Car Cemetery 2, because there is already a Car Cemetery 1, which is near Bidea. And initially it was a big truck and a trailer and some smashed up cars, some old Abu Dhabi taxis. And they were all, I was looking at photos just quite recently, and when they were still fresh. Now they are beginning to disintegrate a bit and fall apart, but the marine life that's on there, the nudibranchs and different things, you'll find butterfly rays around there, electric rays, which you've got to be a bit careful about. Great dive site, it's only about 19 meters, so it's not really on the deep side. But there was a company called Inchcape, Inchcape Shipping, if I recall correctly, and they sank 3 wrecks.
Wow.
Inchcape 1, which is off Akka, the Al Boom use a lot. It's at 30 meters. Inchcape 2, which is in Corfacan, it's at about 22 meters, and Inchcape 10 off Fujairah, which is at 24 meters. All good wrecks to dive. You can penetrate them. They're fairly easy, simple, nothing complicated, full of marine life and masses of fish around them. I mean, you can be diving and then suddenly it'll get dark and you look above you and there's massive shoals of fish around you, and it's wonderful.
That reminds me of the sardine run. Have you checked that out?
Which sardine run?
The one in South Africa.
I've only seen it from the surface. I've not actually been as lucky as Ali, who was there recently. I used to go to South Africa a lot on business, and Durban was one of the areas that I went to. So I've been lucky enough to go out with the Sharks board when I was there as well, when they've been checking nets. And sadly, removing dolphins and turtles as well as sharks from the shark nets, not something I was happy about. But there are reasons where there is really good scientific background, scientific evidence, I should say, that it sort of helps keep sharks away from. It was originally put there to protect swimmers and surfers. I don't know.
What are your top 3 countries for diving?
Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines.
where you find lots of these guys, yeah?
Yes, of course. Macro photography is my best interest. Although I was doing some wide angle when I was in Komodo this year. I did Komodo just before I went. Well, I was in Bali, flew to Komodo or Flores and dived Komodo. I spent a week there. A disaster in the ways. I saw one manta. That was it in the
That's
whole
crazy.
week. It was nuts.
Yeah.
The week before, there were mantas on every dive. The week after, there were mantas on every dive.
They knew you were coming, yeah?
I need to go back.
What's your most fantastic, fabulous, mind-blowing moment you've had while diving?
Mind-blowing? I've had lots of mind-blowing dives.
I know.
Too many to name. The most recent one would be Komodo. The currents there are fantastic. I mean, you cannot fin against them.
Wow. And that doesn't scare you at all?
No, because it's a drift dive. You just go with the flow. I mean, if there's anything you want to do, any emergency arises, then you go up.
Okay.
You can always go up. But the speed, some of these currents is incredible. The best site is called Cauldron and Shotgun. And it's fairly benign at the beginning. You know, you're cruising along, there's barely a current there until you get to this big depression in the bottom. It's not very deep. Can't remember, what was it, about maybe 15 meters? It was nothing special. And then you start to feel it because it starts to spin round.
Like a cauldron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's aptly named. So we all had a very good briefing. I was diving with Blue Marlin and had a good dive leader with us, an Austrian lady, plus two other divers. We got to the edge, which is called Shotgun. So the reef hooks were out, could get them into the rock, and then just hang there,
Chilling.
and just watching the fish go around.
It's like a movie, right?
Yep. It was my first dive with them.
Wow.
And they said no camera.
Why?
I know.
Why?
Because they saw my camera and thought, this guy with a big camera, we've never dived with him before, we don't know what he's
They didn't trust you?
We then saw the next 4 divers coming, so we had to move back a bit and beyond and to let them hook in.
Yeah.
And we moved around, looked round, there's this manta just off to my left, and I have no camera. And it was the only manta we saw.
But you'll remember it forever, yeah?
Of course.
Yeah. Has
once
diving opened up like new doors for you, introduced you to new people,
Oh,
taken you
that's
down
one
paths
of
that
the-
you would not have tried otherwise?
Yeah, one of the best things about diving is the type of people you meet. And you end up traveling and meeting up with them. I'm quite active on an online forum called Scuba Board. And on there, I've met quite a lot of people in person afterwards, which is kind of strange, you know, if you say, oh yeah, I met on this forum, you know, and we're meeting up in Indonesia for the first time, but probably one of my best buddies and photographic-wise buddy, Jen, I met on Scuba Board.
Wow.
And we've met up several times. She came out here actually at the beginning of the year. We went up to Musselendam together, dived off the East Coast, took her to the bridge, of course.
Of course. You wouldn't be Gordon without that.
No, but it was freezing. I mean, this was February. I mean, it was cold. But we've met up in Indonesia several times and gone diving. Most recent trip as well, I met up with her. She's just finished her trip. She just got home yesterday after a 97 dive trip
That's crazy.
It is crazy. She
Yeah.
did a liveaboard and went to a couple of other places in Sulawesi. She's just nuts. But probably, I would say my best photographic buddy besides Kirsten, who lives here, and my daughter, of course.
How many buddies do you have?
Lots.
Do you have one in each country?
Not quite. I wish. But there are people that I have no hesitation in diving with and trusting. That there has to be a mutual trust. And yeah, diving, my recreational instructor said, you soon learn who not to dive with. And there are people that I would avoid diving with.
People who stir up all the sand?
Yes.
I know your pet peeve.
If you're diving with a photographer, the last thing you want to do is annoy that photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some very bad experiences, not so much here in UAE, but in Bali, where you get people who have no clue on diving. Again, my most recent trip, I'm not going to name any names here and embarrass them, but there was a photo person who was holding photographic classes that we knew was in Bali, but we didn't know where they were staying or anything. But as it happened, we ended up on the same beach as them. But fortunately, where I normally go in Bali, we are up at the crack of dawn. We are generally first on the beach wherever we're diving.
Yeah.
And there we were coming up to the end of a dive. And we were 30-meter viz. It was fabulous. And I was taking a photograph of something and I sort of was getting a bit messy. And I'm thinking, okay, who's kicking up the sand? And I looked over to my left and I just saw this wall. It was like a cloud, like a sandstorm underwater. Now, for those that don't know Bali, it's volcanic sand, so it's black.
Mm-hmm.
It's not nice golden sands that you find around here. And it was just getting more and more. And signaled to Jen, and we had a couple of dive guides with us as well. And it was like, okay, let's get up a bit. We were probably about 15 meters at this stage, so we moved shallower, so this cloud actually passed below us. And we looked over and we saw about 20 people who had no buoyancy control. Some of them had camera rigs as big as ours, but were bouncing on the sand. It was awful.
That's a disaster, yeah.
It was a disaster. We got out the water and we're all, first bit of conversation the minute you surface.
You couldn't not see it, right?
And then, sure enough, it was this well-known photographer who was running a photography class. I don't know. I've taught people photography. I'm not a dive instructor, but I've taught a few people.
I think you're a dive instructor without a certificate. Yeah.
And there are some things you need to have spot on before you start taking photographs underwater. And that's your buoyancy.
For sure.
And you need to be able to move around something like this without disturbing it. And, you don't touch the bottom. You need to be perfect. I won't say you've got to be as precise as a GUE diver in the way that they teach people, but as near as. And I think I would say is still one of the problems today with divers and the way they're taught. Kneeling on the bottom shouldn't be.
I agree with you, but it is quite difficult for someone who's brand new and never done this before.
It should only be on maybe the first dive.
Yeah, probably in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But get them floating as soon as possible. Now, when I started tech diving with Coastal Technical Divers, which was a good, more than 10 years ago with Glenn Campbell when he was still here, he had person he was teaching diving, little South African guy, still at school, 17. And his job, when he took him out, when you're doing a tech dive, you know, you've been down to 70 meters, you shouldn't exert yourself much
No.
at the end of the dive. And he was using him. You come down, take your stages away, take them back on the boat, come down, you know, get to the surface, de-kit, climb up the ladder with no gear on. He would take your twin set and climb up the ladder. But I'm watching this guy. And Glenn says, how many dives do you reckon he's done? He was perfect. Horizontal trim, legs up, could move around. I don't know, maybe 50 dives. He says, he just qualified last week.
That's crazy.
It was like his 20th dive.
That's crazy.
You know, so it can be done. And Glenn taught everybody neutral buoyancy from the get-go. There's another instructor here, who's South African, who actually owns a place out in Bali as well, Prana Dive. I'll plug that for him. Brendan is his name.
Mm-hmm.
And he teaches the same. I know some other South African instructors who are also of
I'm
that.
hearing South Africa a lot.
Same, yeah, they're good. South African divers are always good. They've got a good mix of water from bloody colds in Cape Town to warmer waters up off Durban and beyond Sodwana. Is an area.
To wrap up, I just want to ask you, how much has the UAE landscape changed in terms of diving in the last 30 years?
In diving, above has changed massively.
Definitely
but,
above as well as below.
Below, yeah. I would say that the Gulf here off Dubai used to be amazing visibility. You're lucky to get that. I could go out, dive some of the wrecks here, like Sheikh Mohammed's barge, Zainab. You'd have 20-meter visibility. I haven't seen 20-meter visibility off Dubai in years.
And why is that?
The construction, coastal construction, the PAM, I would say is... So.
And is there anything we can do to do our bit to save the oceans right now?
Off Dubai?
Generally speaking, this is where we live.
Yeah, don't throw your rubbish in the water. You know, recycle as much as you can. Be careful what you're doing. I'd say it's, you know, the Gulf itself, there's, I don't know, more than 20 desalination plants around the Gulf in every country around here. They've increased the salinity so much that it's probably killed off a lot of corals as well. I mean, the last couple of years, I've recorded 35 degrees Celsius in the Gulf, warmest it's ever been.
This has also been the longest summer we've experienced.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind the temperature. I don't need to wear a wetsuit, but it's having an effect on the marine life for sure. It will adapt over time, probably, but I don't know.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
I'm going to give you back your superpower glasses.
I need my bush hat as well.